is our pal John Keim. He covers the team for ESPN.com. Hey, John, this team certainly is resilient because the last 4 weeks, it's like cardiac kids every game.
Yes, it is. And the funny thing is, like, there are points in all those games where, like, they just look bad today. Mm-hmm. And it's like, what's going on? And then, boom, something happens, right? And it's like, it's been each game. And I think you don't want to keep falling behind, but it's a really good quality to have to do what they do in the second half and come back in those games. And, you know, you talk to guys, like, they've talked all year about how close they are, the bond, et cetera. That all matters. And you know, the feeling on the sideline is different during those times, and how they react in a way more positive manner than maybe they would have in the past. And that's not necessarily a direct shot at anybody. It's just the makeup of this team is just better suited for that. And in talking to John Allen, he was talking about how just like they follow Dan Quinn's lead in this, you know. Now, and having said that, you know, Jaden Daniels in some of those games has looked really good at those times, and then Mariota looked really good, and that always helps as well. But I think there's a quality that this group has that will make them a tough out.
Hey, John, what a way for Terry McLaurin to cap off his 13 touchdown season with a flair for the dramatic. You just knew that he wasn't going to give up that ball when it came to him in the end zone. And wow, Jaden Daniels has really been the key for him to spike his touchdowns. I mean, he had 7 as a rookie, and then he was between 4 and 5 every year since. And then, you know, he has an eruption for 13 this year. I mean, Terry has to be just overjoyed that Jaden Daniels is his signal caller for years to come here in D.C.
Yeah, and you could tell in the spring how excited he was to play with him. And having obviously dealt with Terry over the last 5 years, or previous 5, that you knew that, I think it was, you know, he had hoped to build something with somebody. I think he knew how far things had to go, or you know, and just to get there because of limitations in the quarterback. But here, I think it was the first time I've genuinely seen him excited about what could possibly be built. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you see it. I think there's a trust there, but there's also, I think the communication is huge, and just the depth of communication from both Terry and Jaden. And I think that matters as well. And just kind of like being able to see the same thing as the other person, you know, when in this coverage, do this, you know, or you get this, you get this look, let's do this. You just, like, what he's always talked about with me is wanting to have that, you know, get to the line of scrimmage and maybe just get that look from the quarterback, and you know you both see it the same way. Mm-hmm. And that's something new. Now, with obviously the touchdown yesterday, well, there's 2 things. One, also in the red zone, they're using him a lot more. 10 touchdowns of his have come in the red zone. He had 11 in the last 5 years combined. Like, it's kind of criminal what didn't take place in the red zone the last several years. And you seeing how ridiculous maybe that was, right? Because what he's doing. But then even on the touchdown yesterday, they ran the same thing on the 2-point conversion, and it was off. And you go back to sidelines, you communicate, you talk about it, and it was Terry just like, just give me just a little bit more. And I actually went through and timed it last night. The 2-point conversion, this isn't approximate, but it's definitely just the 2-point conversion was thrown just a little bit faster, and so he wasn't able to get to his spot. On the touchdown, it was about, I think the 2-point was like 1.7 seconds. The 2-pointer was like 2.0, or the touchdown was 2.0. But that little difference made the difference, and that stemmed from the communication. And I think that's credit to both veterans.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, I even tweeted at the time I hated the 2-point play, even though it was the same one that was the touchdown later. I hated it. But they synced it up and they made it look so easy. And then I know he talked about the anecdote that Tavita had been really working on that, and they had a package and sort of highlighting how to run that play. So I get it. What's going on? I have a theory, John, and it's pretty simple. Cliff knew that without Biadasz, he wasn't going to be able to run the ball very well, because I think he only gave it to his running backs 8 times. There were 10 of the first 12 were passes. Now they were getting in long situations. The penalties are maddening. It's becoming an issue. The penalties, by the way.
Yeah.
But we also have issues up front. We just do.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it's just because Biotis was out. Like, they haven't been running the ball well with the backs for a few games. Like, it extends beyond that. And I think that.
But there's been a lot of guys out on the O-line. Right? Interchanging them. Playing Trent Scott.
That's been happening. That's been happening a lot of year. But that, like yesterday, it was Coleman came out, but they weren't running the ball when they had their guys in either. So I don't think it's just a matter of Biotis being out. I think there has been disruptions, but there were at the beginning of the year they were rotating Lucas and Coleman, right? So it's not. I just don't put it on that. I haven't been blocking well, to be honest.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. So, but I don't think it's just, and why is that? Why is it much different? I don't, I think if I knew, they might know, and they haven't figured it out, but, it's a problem. It's a definite problem because it's hard to be, they're lucky that they have clearly two quarterbacks who can make plays with their legs. But with Jade, obviously, he can extend things and hurt you that way. And so it covers up some of that stuff. And you have to include him in the run game as well because he does run. But you would like to you'd like to see them be a lot more consistent in that area to stay, one, to stay ahead of the change, and you're going to have to change it up in the playoffs if you want to go far. It can't just be reliant on one area. And that, to me, is what has, can they get it fixed this year? I don't know. What I do know is they just haven't been running well lately. And it's, typically blocking, it's not just the O-line. You're going to have tight ends in there as well, but it just hasn't been as good and it hasn't been as fluid as it was earlier in the year when they were running really well.
Joined by John Keim, covers the Commanders.
And I'm not to cut you off, sorry, but it could be that, yes, injuries can be a part of that. And maybe there's some things adding up, that we haven't, that you don't know. Like Wiley's been in and out. And again, Biotis has been in, the last few games. There has been some injuries there. Yeah. So, but I don't know if that's the only reason or not, because there's still sometimes like you see things. Yeah. It's so I think that's the thing that they have to get figured out.
Joined by John Keim, covers the Commanders for ESPN.com. So they're going to take on Tampa Sunday night, playoff game rematch from week 1, but it's totally different. I wanted to focus on a couple of positives. All right. It'll be a positive if Lattimore plays, and we expect it, but Sanistrill's been a stud all year, hasn't he? And people thought they'd move him back to cover the slot. He's fine on the outside, isn't he?
He's been very good there. I would still bet, or not bet, right? I would still think that in the future, that's where he's going to be really good at, right? So, but who knows? That's for the future. This year, yes, that the initial thought was he would go back inside, and it's like, but he's playing too well outside. Mm-hmm. And part of it is like, he's got, it's that makeup, right? The competitiveness and the confidence, and you have to have both as a corner. I think Lattimore has that in droves. And I think Samuel is just a really, really good competitor. And that's not to like discredit, like he's good in technique and all that. That's all that's there. But for a corner, to me, I would start with competitiveness. And, he can cover different guys, even if it has to like you're playing up against a level of talent, right? Against an A.J. Brown or someone like that. But he doesn't back down from it. And I think that's one thing that I really like about him. And you still, like yesterday, he broke up, I think it was at least 3 passes, just with really good positioning, technique, smarts, competitiveness. So, yeah, I mean, whatever it is in the future, you got a good corner there, bottom line. And the only reason you people wondered about that is like in Quinn's defense, Joe Witt, like they always like the bigger corners on the outside. Well, he doesn't fit that mold, but the competitiveness and the toughness exactly fits what they want out there. So, if he stays out there, like, hey, it means that he's playing well, and they have confidence in him at that. So that would be good. But he's done a really good. I mean, the corner play, we've seen the other stuff. He's been a godsend for them out there.
Hey, John, if Lattimore goes, and I'm guessing he will for the playoffs, do you think there's added emphasis from the coaching staffs saying to him throughout the week, you can't get into one-on-one altercations with Mike Evans. You just got to go out and play your game, try to cover him the best you can, and just leave all the shenanigans from the past in the past. We can't have it in a playoff game.
Yeah, well, you would hope so, yes, because the margin for error shrinks in the postseason. And this is a team that has been, has fallen behind and dug some holes and dig out of it, but you can't have the excess stuff. So yeah, you would think so. Although, yeah, you would in your way, you have to let them know. Yes.
All right. So yeah, how are we going to be different? Like, I know offensively we understand our identity more. Cliff understands his pieces better. Jaden's got 17 games under his belt now. So I feel like even though Todd Bowles can create all these schemes and come up with all these pressures, I feel like we'll be okay offensively. I'm not confident that we'll be able to contain Baker again. He can do so many things on his own. We pressured him and he just beat us. He almost single-handedly beat us when we played him. How is that aspect going to be different?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah.
But yes, you're going to have stronger coverage too. But that's where they have to hope that Lattimore is able to go, because now at least you feel good about the guys on the outside. And I do think they felt good, obviously, about the pressure they put on. And in some cases, like you put that same pressure on, I think you take your chances because you're putting the pressure on. At some point, you're going to get them down. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's that. The hard part for me with Tampa is that they're running the ball really well, and that creates another layer of concern that wasn't quite as strong in that first game. On offense, I think going back to the Bull stuff, they've seen that style of defense too from other teams. So that was to me for a rookie quarterback in a new offense, et cetera, was a tough first one because of all the stuff they do. The hard part or the problem first of all, Tampa defends the run very well. So, we talk about the run games, may not be as big a need this week because they defend it so well. It would be difficult. You just want to stay ahead of the change. But it also, what they do is have issues in the pass game. And because of the stuff they run with the blitzes and the games up front, to generate pressure, that's how they have to do that to generate pressure. But when you're doing that, you're leaving yourself exposed in other areas. And that's what they can take advantage of. And shoot, in that first game, there are a couple throws that were, a couple things that were there that were just missed that I think they feel pretty good if you get the same scenario again. And so I think that's where they can make it very interesting. But yeah, with Mayfield, that's his ability to extend plays in that first game, not just extend plays and then just hit huge plays. Was a major problem. Killed us. Yeah, and they haven't faced a quarterback like him in a while. I mean, they're the stretch, who they face down the stretch has not been Baker Mayfield. Right. So that will be a challenge for them for sure.
How much?
But again, if you get their pressure like that in the first game, I think they take their chances.
It's hard for me to tell when I'm watching at home, and it's probably hard to tell also when you're in the press box. But how many reps is John Allen, in the last couple of weeks? Seemed like he played a little more this time.
Yeah, and I don't know how many snaps I haven't checked that out yet. But I know last week, I don't remember what the number was, but decent amount. And the other thing, last week in the second half, they weren't on the field that much. So it wasn't, but what they did use them in was in the last week was more of a heavier run package look with the 3 tackles out there. But he was definitely, and I even talking to him after the game, he felt like, and because I even said, "Do you feel like yourself?" He goes, "Definitely, yes." Playing that second game for him coming back, I think was a good thing for him going into the playoffs. But I don't know how many snaps he had, but he's definitely rotating it.
He's definitely in a heavy part of the rotation.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, did you talk to Eckler after the game? How's he feeling?
Did not talk to him.
Okay.
But and Dan Quinn said that again, good to have him back for this one just to kind of get back in the flow.
Right.
So
not
that
to rust
week,
off
I think next week you'll see probably maybe see him do a little bit more than he was this week for sure.
All right, John, got a playoff game, at least one.
Yeah, how about that?
Got to enjoy it.
12 wins.
All right, safe trip back. I know you're stuck out there. Safe trip back.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
All right, thank you, buddy.
It's John Keim, covers the Commanders for ESPN.com. A little bit later in the show, we have our colleague check-in, Michael Phillips from 910 The Fan, 105.1 FM in Richmond is going to jump on at 8:20. We'll get the Buccaneers perspective coming up at 9:20 with John Ledyard, and we want to touch on that. How are you feeling about this matchup against the Buccaneers? It's Sunday night. You thought it was going to potentially be the Rams? No, the Rams lose. They decided to go with Jimmy G, a quarterback. He actually played okay, but they get a loss. Tampa wins, which means the Commanders will head to Tampa to face on the Buccaneers. How do you feel about this matchup? We'll take your calls next at 800-636-1067.